Wow. Today is finale Sunday of InHabit. This is
crazy.
school year. We have spent a school year moving through these 7 formational habits, and what a journey it's been. It's been so much fun on our end. I mean, as we dreamt about this and envisioned this, and then to watch it kind of play out and come to fruition, and to hear some of the stories of formation that have happened, it's been beautiful.
Really cool feedback from so many of you of how different parts of this journey have made such an impact for you, and we really wanted to give you an opportunity today to visit as a group and share some of your stories with each other, and celebrate what God has done over this last school year.
Right. So, we kind of use as an anchor, if we go all the way back to the beginning of this premise from John, who writes in the 15th chapter of John this beautiful imagery of Jesus being the vine and we are the branches, and we are to remain connected to the vine, and only in that pursuit of remaining in Him will we actually yield fruit that lasts, that is meaningful, that has lasting value.
Yeah, and the same author wrote some letters that are in the New Testament as well later on. If you track through the New Testament later, you'll find 1 John, and in 1 John 2 verse 6, he kind of picks up on this idea of abiding or remaining in the vine, and he says, if you say you remain in Jesus, then you need to walk in the manner that He walked. You need to live out life the way that He did. And we see in John and other apostles of Jesus this example of them walking in that manner and following those same lifestyle habits and practices of staying connected to Him and staying connected in the Spirit. And so that's what this journey has been about.
The heart behind the whole thing really is learning to live like Jesus so that we can love like Jesus. And as we walked through these 7 habits, certainly some of them maybe have been more meaningful or more challenging than others, and each of our experiences will be different with that. So again, as we kind of do a recap of each of these, then we want to throw it to you to do that recap and encourage you to be honest about where you have seen growth, where you still maybe are struggling, and even feel free to pour courage into one another and where you've seen fruit being produced in someone else's life as they have been learning to live like Jesus.
So as you think back on these 7 habits, some of them maybe a really long time ago as we walk back, but what was it that made a great impact on your life? So when we go back to abiding alone with God, and we reflect on how we talked about spending quiet time with the Lord, silence, solitude, carving out that intentional time to sit with the Lord in prayer and reflection and listening. And
how many of you have an Eremos now?
Right? That's right. That's true.
How many fishing boats now have Eremos painted on the side of them?
And deer stands.
That's right. Deer stands
everywhere.
And recliners,
So, and then we went from there to thinking thoroughly through Scripture and talked about, being intentional and spending time in Scripture, learning how to study it better, learning, to really let it soak in. So like memorizing, meditating on Scripture, really letting it live and dwell richly in us.
Yeah. Beautiful ways that I know that that's playing out in some of our church families' lives. And again, I hope you'll share some of these breakthroughs that you've had in a few moments. But then we moved to this idea of eating an intentional community, this idea of a feasting God, which a feasting pastor,
you were really excited about
just
that
really
series.
Likes to lean into that. And really the idea of how when we come around a table like the early church even did, and certainly how we see Jesus kind of manifest the kingdom. The Son of Man came eating and drinking. By golly, if we want to learn to live like Him, we need to sit down with people who are like us, who are far from God, who are already brothers and sisters in the faith. All kinds of people sitting in community, building rapport and relationship. I wonder what that looks like and where you saw some growth in that area.
Yep. And the Sabbath thing.
Oh, yeah, the Sabbath, man. Whew. That was a challenging one, so countercultural, and yet so profound to speak into this cultural moment maybe, and some of the anxiety and the exhaustion and the sense of being overwhelmed. That Sabbath is God's answer, a line that sticks out to me is, our God invented the weekend, it turns out.
Yeah.
He's the God who redeemed people out of slavery and said, I'm actually commanding a gift of a day where you don't work, you don't strive, you don't labor. You're enough, and you find that you're enough in me and my sufficiency. So a day of worship and rest and delight. I wonder, again, what kind of, how the needles moved, so to speak, in your home and your family and your rhythm as you wrestled with this idea of Sabbath.
Yeah, another one that we really had to wrestle with as a church was fasting. That was, those two in particular seemed like Sabbath and fasting. There was a lot of like, whew, this is
Intense.
it is a little intense, and it's something to kind of, it takes some time to get acclimated to the idea of it even. But fasting, from bodily desires, and we specifically leaned into this idea of fasting from food and doing what Jesus did, what his apostles did in that practice, and it did. For some of you, as you visit about this, you might reflect on, like, it may have been several weeks in before you're like, okay, let's give this a try, but so many of you did, and it would be awesome, I think, to hear, for you to share some of those testimonies around what that was like for you and what you experienced in that, because we heard a lot of stories from people that were powerful. We moved from there into slowing down to be present. And man, got a lot of feedback on that one too, and people just saying like, yeah, I'm hearing this from the Lord in several spots in my life. I need to slow down, and so share a little bit about maybe how you did slow down.
Right. And then, of course, we just wrapped up the final habit and the idea of curating media with intentionality. Just this recognition that in the digital age that we find ourselves, it can become one of the biggest distractions and deterrents to spiritual growth, to even really living in all of these other practices. And so it's appropriate that we conclude with that, because the gravitational pull is to pull us into media consumption that maybe is just unchecked. And that will have a counterproductive effect on discipleship.
Yep, and I think that it's fair also, as you begin discussing these 7, that it's okay if you took a step forward and a step back. Like if you find that I made some progress and then I kind of relapsed to other habits and things, and so there's grace here, and what we're talking about is a lifelong journey.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
not something that we expect that everyone got it all right this year. None of us did, including us. We didn't get it all right. So.
And again, I think of when Peter the apostle writes, and he uses this language of, we add to our faith in increasing measure, that it really is this process-oriented picture, this journey.
Yep.
And, it's okay to note today where even if it was just a little increase in measure, celebrate that, because that's movement in the right direction.
It is. Yeah. So we're excited to be wrapping this thing up, excited for what God has done through this series. And really, we think that this is going to continue to be a huge part of our church culture and life. And so spend some time today celebrating and encouraging with one another.